Welcome back to The Hook on Woodward Sports Network. And yes, my friends, it is time for us to bring on our guest, Adnan Virk, joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Pilar, D-Mac, and Maz. So I was at my desk, but we have a very strict protocol here as far as quarantining and having a mask on. So I had another guy in my office, Keith, who I share an office with. So it looks like I'm in high school right now. I have all these lockers and stuff.
I love it.
But I'm not going to get stuffed into a locker WWE style, I promise that. Good to be with all of you today.
That is awesome, AV. I'm so happy for you and all your success. No one, not a bigger fan than I, and congrats on everything. And the latest, man. I mean, did you ever think of this? WWE with you?
No way, Maz. I never thought of this. It's great to reunite. It's shocking, man. I mean, even I heard Pilar going to break mentioning it. It's still baffling to me. You often hear that expression, surreal, and that's what it feels like. It's been a really interesting journey, my whole life. I just, all these opportunities that have come, and obviously 9 years at ESPN, and all these 6 jobs that I have now between MLB Network and it's D-Mac Labricia. Today I'm doing hockey. I'm with Bruce Boudreau, Mike Rupp, so we got hockey from 6 to 7. So unfortunately, this Avalanche situation is terrible. But yeah, MLB Network, NHL Network, Raw, Cinephile, GM Shuffle, NFL Pod. It's been wild.
So, Adnan Virk, obviously, bro, congratulations. You're living every Canadian kid's dream. I know you being from Toronto and growing up in the Kingston area, I was looking back that, you around there in '89. Well, that's when I was in Belleville in the OHL and stuff.
Oh,
and
nice. Belleville, the friendly city. I love it.
Absolutely. Bell Vegas, baby. So, but I remember being such a huge at the wrestling at the time, being in junior and stuff like that. Where did your love of wrestling and to get to, like, how does this situation for you come up? Because this is like, I heard you do an interview when you said 10-year-old you. I believe it, dude. I was so stoked for you because not only the wrestling fan being Canadian, but you're a hockey guy. So there's that thing too.
And football.
Well, I understand that, Maz, but and movies and everything else. But
Godfather.
But how did this come about, and to where you're actually sitting down with Vince McMahon, and this is going to happen?
Yeah, dude, it's shocking. I love the excitement you have because I feel the same way. By the way, Belleville Bulls, Kingston Frontenacs. I mean, epic rivalries growing up. I still remember driving with friends to both those games, the Memorial Center, obviously in Kingston, going way back. But yeah, my agent reached out in December, and Nick Hahn's my former agent. He's with CAA for a long time, and now he's the president of WWE. So when he took the job in August, I had said to him, like, hey, listen, if ever there's an opportunity, he's like, I'll keep you in mind. Saying it half-heartedly, never expecting this. And then months later, he was like, be ready. And Michael Cole, who was in charge of all the on-air talent at WWE, was talking to my current agent, Matt Olson. He goes, who's someone in your roster? Vince McMahon wants, a different voice, right? He wants a classic sportscaster. Who's someone that think he could do it? And so Matt was like, listen, I know Adnan was a big fan as a kid. I know now he's got all these other jobs. He's got young kids, etc. But, at least give him a shot. So they had me audition. The audition was a blast. To your point, I just said, as a 10-year-old kid, this would just be cool to audition, much less get the job. I'm like, I just get to meet some professional wrestlers and WWE stars and kind of see the operation. They flew me down to Florida. I did a few matches off the monitor, met a couple of the guys, and away we went. And I didn't think too much of it. And then they actually offered me the job, and I went, oh, my God, this is shocking. But to be honest, it was actually a lot of stress because with COVID and everything, I said, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. I can't be doing Bruce Boudreau and Mike Rupp and Kevin Weeks shows and flying to Florida. So I really give credit to my bosses here at MLB and NHL because they said, okay, you got to get vaccinated right away. The country got in better shape. By April 3rd, the CDC said if you're fully vaccinated, you can travel domestically. So it was a week before I actually ended up going to WrestleMania. I still can't wait to get back to Canada and see my parents, which you still can't do. But it's a long, winding road, Darren, and I'm shocked that, honestly, the moment really hit me was at 8:01 on Monday when I was like, we're actually doing this. Because prior to that, it could be a practical joke. So
right.
Like, okay, sorry, we were just kidding around. This isn't actually happening. But once we were actually live on the air, it was really cool. And the guys I was with were amazing. Corey Graves and Byron Saxon. I've done every sport, and I've called different games, but you really have to make your analysts shine. And those guys carried me. I'm not kidding. They knew every single move. And I promised myself, listen, don't try to extend yourself. Don't say stuff you don't know. It would be like calling a hockey game and, talking about icing and you really had no idea what it was. So I tried to keep things simple, and I was really fortunate things worked out.
Just a couple things on that with Corey Graves. He's a Pittsburgh guy. He's a Penguins fan and stuff like that. Did him being a hockey guy and stuff like that help out? Or because it's a camaraderie, and I saw a post or Twitter about your new team, right? Which is like every time you go, no matter what it was. But talk about, see, I love the fact because to me, I think they're going to take care of you. Right? You know what I'm saying, as you're saying. So my big thing, though, were you starstruck by anybody when you went down there, like meeting them as a fan?
Well, I did see Hulk Hogan at one point drive by in a golf cart. And I said, okay, I mean, that was kind of cool. Like, I wish I could have had a minute with him. That was really cool. But as I've told the story, when they flew me down, again, everything's been hush-hush. Like, I auditioned February 5th. A few weeks later, things were looking good. I did get clearance from MLB. So, like, late March, we were pretty good. But everything was quiet. So I only told 5 people. I only told my wife, one of my 4 kids, my parents, and my brother, and that was it. So I went down to WrestleMania on the 10th, and I was trying to keep a low profile, right? Trench coat, fedora. I'm going to hide out the back. I don't want anyone to see me. So when we unveiled that surprise Monday morning, it really was the shock of a lifetime. It's like having a birthday party, and I was jumping out of the cake. I know that's a bad image. You'd rather have Marilyn Monroe, but that's what it was. So to your point of being starstruck, I wanted to probably engage more of those people backstage, but I figured, you know what? I don't even want to be a part of it. So I said, let me just kind of lay low. But I there's no question, Darren, when I get to meet them a little bit, and I mean, it's hockey. I mean, I was thinking I can't wait to meet Edge. Edge is a Toronto guy, huge hockey fan. I mean, guys like him, Kevin Owens, obviously, is from Quebec. Sami Zayn's from Montreal, like the Canadians in particular. But you mentioned Graves, big hockey guy, Penguins fan, Pirates fan, and your whole point about teammates is important. Like, they know, hey, listen, man, this guy's got all these other jobs. He's coming from a different place. He has not been watching wrestling week after week for the last 30 years. So we got you. We'll cover you. Let's do this together, which is a really wonderful feeling.
Awesome.
Adnan Virk joining us here on the Hook on Woodward Sports Network. Love you, man. I'm glad your success is amazing. WWE Raw, MLB Network, NHL Network, so on and so forth. Big movie buff. Michael Lombardi and you on the NFL podcast, the GM Shuffle. That's always fun. That's in my rundown as well. Hockey in Detroit. It's been down, obviously, over the past years, but I do have Stanley Cup goal-clinching guy sitting next to me here. But the Wings make that deal at the deadline. Anthony Mantha, huge deal. The kid scored 2 goals already with the Capitals. And then on the Tigers side, we got Akil Baddoo, here in Detroit. So things are kind of looking up for us here, Adnan.
Maz, that Akil Baddoo story has been amazing. One of my best friends is from Windsor, so he grew up a huge Detroit Tigers fan. And he's been texting me today, like, this story's awesome. I was like, are you kidding? Like, this it's like a Star is Born, right? It's straight out of a movie, the way he's come up on the scene. Walk-off here, Grand Slam here. I kept saying his name sounds like Erykah Badu, so I'm like, I hope he gets like Erykah Badu, warm-up music at some point. But kidding aside, he's been a real star, and I like this Tigers team. I remember when AJ Hinch got introduced as the manager, I was doing the press conference on MLB Network, and I've always liked AJ, and they've got a good collection of talent, as you guys know. There's a lot of focus on that pitching. Casey Mize I love, by the way, because Splitters, like as a kid growing up, I just loved watching Splitters, Bruce Sutter in the 80s. And so I asked him when I interviewed Casey Mize, I said, I love the fact he throws Splitters. They wouldn't tell you not to throw it. He said, yeah, they tell me it's too hard on the arm, but I like throwing it. So I love Mize, Manning, Tarek Skubal. Obviously, you guys have seen it now, Badu. I think for Detroit, we knew they were pitching rich. Now, hopefully, the bats come along. And as far as the Red Wings are concerned, that Mantha deal, you guys are closer situation than I am. I did not see that coming. But I talked to Brian Lawton about it, former GM, former agent, because you know what? They got a good return for him. He's a good young kid. That's one of those major trades that should hopefully benefit both parties.
I know you're a big Eagles fan, too, NFL. We just talked about Jalen Hurts, and there was a tweet out today from a guy in Philly how this kid spent his first $1 million. And he put $738,000 of it in the bank. Then he paid off his sisters?
His sister's loan.
Sister's tuition.
His sister's tuition. He helped his dad. He helped his brother buy this and that. But the kid is smart. What's your take on Jalen Hurts?
Well, it's interesting. He definitely gave them a real jolt, Maz, because Wentz just played so poorly. And I was the biggest Carson Wentz apologist. I said he has no offensive line. They're ravaged by injury. They're old. They're beat up. I hated Doug Pearson's play calling. He just never ran the ball, even though Miles Sanders is their best offensive weapon. The receivers are slow, don't create separation. But eventually, with all that being said, Wentz was also a problem. He was also getting sacked a ton, turnover prone. So at that point, I was also frustrated. Now, to be clear, I thought they would keep Wentz and just kind of push, push him along with Hurts coming in. But he immediately brought them energy. He was a playmaker. He was dynamic. his numbers overall were not great. If you look them up, I mean, it was like, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 54% completion. But I think more than anything, he was a breath of fresh air. The team seemed to believe in him. And I think now that they're going to try to, surround him with appropriate talent, you look at this draft, they're definitely going to be able to get a wide receiver. They definitely need offensive line help. So I'm intrigued by it. Initially, when they drafted him, I thought it was insane. I said, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We have Wentz in a long-term contract. Why would you draft another quarterback? And it's shocking the way it's all went down. There was a great article in The Athletic. Me and Mike broke it down, the most recent NFL podcast we did, the GM Shuffle, in which they showed how winning a Super Bowl sometimes can be toxic. Because all of a sudden, Howie Roseman thought there was a limited window. All of a sudden, trying to win now. It doesn't happen. The franchises has regressed. Now, Doug Peterson's gone. Carson Wentz is gone. So it's been a situation which has had a lot of flux. But I'm intrigued by Hurts, and that's a cool story. But I'm taking care of the right things. That's nice to hear.
Adnan Virk here, obviously the man of everything. More importantly, you better tune into WWE Monday Night Raw and check him out. But I want to go back to the NHL, and you mentioned about the Colorado Avalanche having the COVID. Vancouver has gone through a spell of having it. There was articles out a few weeks ago about the NHL going to a bubble for playoffs. Do you guys hear anything of that? Could that be a legit possibility for the NHL?
I think they'll kick around anything, D-Mac. I was just watching. Elliot Friedman was on our air, of course, the great Hockey Night in Canada insider, my old friend from Toronto, and he said that because Jackie Redmond asked him, with this Avalanche situation, he goes, I don't want to speculate too much. All I know is they're shutting it down for a week. April 20th, they're going to try to see from there. We know that Grubauer has it, and you're just trying to avoid what happened with Vancouver. You saw that in baseball last year, the Marlins and the Cardinals. You don't want it to be, 1 or 2 get it, now it's 7, now it's spread through the entire team, and obviously Vancouver's situation has been heartbreaking. So we are almost at the finish line. Should have been May 10th. They've pushed the season back now, theoretically, for Vancouver. They're going to try to play a game every night, and now this Colorado situation is tough. To be blunt, D-Mac, a part of me said, well, Vancouver, they probably weren't going to make the playoffs, so they don't make it to the finish line in terms of total games. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? You go by winning percentage. But Colorado's a concern. This is a legit Stanley Cup contender. If they are waylaid by this, all of a sudden it impacts the season. My whole thought all along was you got to get this in before the Olympics. You want to get this in by July 18th at the very latest and have the season wrapped up. A couple months, we'll regroup. So my fear is that if Colorado's situation is worse than we think, the regular season gets pushed. The worst possible case would be try to play the playoffs. You have to pause for the Western and Eastern Conference Finals and the Stanley Cup for the Olympics, because NBC says, we don't want to just put this on, where are we going to put this? We need to have this on NBC, NBCSN, USA, and then all of a sudden, then the Cup final will be in August. So I think everything's in play. I haven't heard any specifics in the bubble, but everything's in play, and I just hope they get it in before the Olympics, because that can really be a logistical nightmare.
I appreciate that. You just made Maz look like a genius, because that's what he's been saying, that you watch out. There might be a pause in effect, and hockey might be the one. So way to make Maz look great, Adnan.
Yeah, thanks, Adnan. I appreciate it. Hey,
it's not hard to do. Maz is a bright guy.
Thanks a lot, AB. Hey, before Pilar asks you about some movies, NFL draft. Who's going first, Justin Fields or Mac Jones?
You know what? That's interesting, because we all know the top picks are obviously going to be Lawrence and Zach Wilson. I'm going to say Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones goes third to the 49ers. I think they like him a lot. There's something about that system. Clearly, San Francisco traded up with New York. We all know that because they recognized that they wanted someone there. They want to seize the opportunity. So I think Mac Jones goes there. I think Justin Fields. I don't think he goes 4 either. I think Penei Sewell, if they're smart, goes high. He's a great tackle at Oregon, as you guys know. So I'm going to go Mac Jones.
Because the odds have switched. Justin Fields now is the favorite over Mac Jones to go at 3.
Yeah, I think what happens is the top 3 picks are quarterbacks. I think that is. I put bet the house on that.
Top 4, I think.
Yeah.
Lawrence. Yeah, it could be top 4, but 4th is where I'm not sure. Falcons might go, because Matty Ryan's turned 36, but Lombardi and I keep saying if I were them, I would get a guard. Or a tackle, excuse me. The Bengals can't wait to get Penei Sewell at 5, because that would just protect their investment with Joe Burrow. So 4 quarterbacks in the first 4 picks, I'm not entirely sold, but I'll take Jones over Fields. Although it's interesting that's flipped.
So just to follow up on that with the draft question, what do you think that the Lions are going to do at 7?
Well, it's interesting. They've got, the Lions, when Mike and I were talking about this, I'm curious what Chris Spielman's role is here, because what the biggest problem, and Mike knows this being a former GM, winning Super Bowls with the Patriots and the Raiders, it's it gets very hard if there's too many cooks in the kitchen. You have to have a clear direction of what you want to do. And at least for the case of the Lions, they know that the quarterback situation is straightforward because they've moved on from Matthew Stafford. So I think their defense is a real concern. Wide receivers, there's about 3 wide receivers who are going to go in the top 15. I could see them going towards one of those receivers, but I think you're definitely going more towards defensive line help. That's my guess right now for the Lions.
Now, one real quick question before we go. Maz told us you have a movie podcast. He's a big Batman guy, but he's never seen any Marvel movies. What Marvel movie do you recommend to him to suck him into the Marvel universe? 'Cause I think it's phenomenal.
Well, I like that about Maz because I generally have said there's a glut of superhero movies, and I find it to be a little exhausting after a while. Although what we've gone through with the theaters being shut down, fine, I'll go watch whatever nonsensical Ant-Man I'd have to watch just to be in a movie.
Come on, man, easy on Paul Rudd.
I do like Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd, by the way, big sports guy, big Kansas City sports guy. Loves the Royals. I interviewed him once. He loved Willie Wilson's his favorite baseball player all the time, so that is cool.
It's a good one.
I thought Logan was a great movie, and that fits that universe. But the reason, of course, I love it is that it's less of a true superhero movie. It's more grounded. It's like the Western Unforgiven, right? And Wolverine's got one last kick at the can. So I think Logan's a great movie that Maz would love. But Maz, I love that you're in on Batman. I mean, listen, the DC. Think about the DCs. They got Batman, they got Superman, and then after that, Marvel's got everybody. But if you stay firm with Gotham City, it's tough to beat.
That's me, man. Hey, my Jersey license plate when I drove to Michigan read Batmaz. Okay, so I am
for the nickname alone, yeah.
So last question, Zack Snyder cut, you approve?
It's funny you mentioned that, D-Max. So I have not had the 4 hours to watch it. I've asked people who I trust, and they tell me that there is more depth to it in storylines, but it's still not a good movie. I thought, Darren, when I saw it was not a bit of a mess all over the place. Although I didn't think Affleck was as bad as some people said. I actually thought he was decent. I thought he was a better Bruce Wayne than he was as a Batman, but he nailed the kind of. I thought the cockiness of it, I thought Ben actually did a pretty good job with it. But the Snyder Cut I heard is just, it's basically inflated and not necessarily superior, but it is improvement over what was generally considered disappointing.
Well, here's the thing, right? It feels like one movie instead of two, right? The first one where it has and it makes sense because you get depth on the characters, which is all you want in the universe to understand. So.
Hey,
I agree, and I'm with you on time. Like I said, the 4 hours. I wasn't being, I wasn't trying to knock it. I just think that you're right. Sometimes certain movies you need to have that depth. I mean, people criticize The Irishman for its runtime, but I thought it was a brilliant movie. It could be 7 hours as far as I'm concerned. So I have no issue with Zach saying, you know what, people didn't like this. Let me go back and try to fix it.
Give me an A, B, or C grade on my top 3 movies, which are Rocky, Godfather 1, and Godfather 2.
The Godfather 1 and Godfather 2 are A-pluses. Rocky, I'm not as big on. I'll tell you my issue with Rocky. It's because it won Best Picture when there was far superior movies that year. Taxi Driver is one of the greatest movies of all time. Should have won Best Picture. All the President's Men is a great film about Watergate. Network is the greatest movie ever about television, which we all work in the media. And somehow this Rocky Balboa movie won Best Picture. I mean, listen, it's a sweet movie. Stallone deserves a lot of credit what he did. He bet on himself. I got it. He wrote the screenplay. Cool. Should not have won Best Picture. It's crazy.
Okay, we're through.
I'm going to agree with him. I'm going to have to agree with you, Adnan.
Thanks, buddy.
Batman.
You're the best. Say hi to Coach Boudreaux and Rupper.
I will. I'll see them about an hour from now. Thanks, D-Mac. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
God
so
bless
much
you, man.
for joining our show. Adnan Virk, make sure that you're checking him out on Monday Night Raw, WWE.